Chapter 29. A Personal War. He woke up early the next morning, looking at him red-headed fiancé as she slept. He kissed her forehead as he grabbed his sword and bag. They had discussed this at length. She did not approve of his actions, but she could not stop him. He just stared at her sleeping form for a moment, then rubbed her cheek. I will be home soon to Yuyukoi, I promise. I need to at least make a dent in their forces. He adjusted his bag, then went to leave, stopping at the door when he heard movement behind him. He looked over his shoulder to see her standing in the doorway staring at him. He gave her a small smile. To Yuyukoi, you should be sleeping. She just stared at him. You thought I would be okay with you leaving without at least giving me a proper goodbye. The blonde man smiled as he walked over to her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. I didn't want you to wake up. I also know that you don't want me to go. I don't want you to be stressed out. It's not good for the baby, you know. Tayayu started to rub her stomach without even thinking about, you're being stupid, you're risking your life even though we have a child on the way. I don't want to have to raise our child on my own. Naruto kissed her gently on the lips, then crouched down and kissed her stomach gently, then smiled. He stood up and smiled at her. You will not be raising our child alone. I will be here with you, but first I have to make this world safer for you and our baby. When I come back, then I will be completely yours to Yuyukoi, but I have to do this. It is my personal war for our family's sake. She didn't mind him fighting for them, honestly. She just wanted to be able to fight alongside him. She hated that she was sidelined while he went off to fight the Akatsuki. You don't have to kill them, all right. Just some of them. He gave her a smile, then kissed her again, but with more passion and depth, then kissed her forehead, making her smile. He held her close for a moment. I will be home soon to Yuyukoi. With that he disappeared in a gust of wind, then reappeared at the gate. With one last glance at the village, he took off towards where he had heard a couple of Akatsuki members were at Takigakure. He arrived there by dawn and looked around. It appeared that people were not noticing things like stepping in water and bumping into one another. That made him think that the Uchiha was here. Naruto stood, then begun to sneak into the village. As he got close, though, his wind affinity picked something up underneath him. He leapt up as a black arm tried to grab him and landed a few feet back as a plant-like man came out of the ground. Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Have you come to turn yourself in? The blonde man smirked, then flashed at Zetsu with a speed boost from his wind. Zetsu closed the Venus fly trap that surrounds him as Naruto's fist crashed into it, but it still sent him flying back into a building, making it collapse. Naruto sighed. So much for the element of surprise. Zetsu didn't appear to be getting up anytime soon, but soon 4 other Akatsuki members were standing in front of him. One was Deidara, a clay explosive user. Konan, Kisame and Itachi were all there as well. Naruto put his hands in front of him, then activated his Kyuubi eyes to negate Itachi's Sharingan as well as be able to see movement easier. Kisame pointed his blade at Naruto. He is mine, you all have failed enough times. Naruto stared at him. This may work in his favor to have one of them try to take him on one-on-one. That being said, Naruto put his hands in front of him as Kisame rushed at him, swinging Samahata to try and steal a portion of Naruto's chakra. Luckily, Naruto had spent hours going over the notes Jiraiya had left him about each Akatsuki member. He ducked the blade and pushed his hands forward, and a gust of wind came from them, pushing the Akatsuki member back. Kisame was watching him closely as he whispered, there were no hand signs. Naruto smirked and jumped, using his bond with the wind to get up higher than normal, and as he was in the air put his hand out. A Rasengan quickly formed as he flew back towards the ground and thrusted forward, the Rasengan connecting with Samahata as Kisame tried to defend himself. The impact alone made an explosion as Naruto landed outside a crater. He figured that would be the end of Kisame until he heard a laughing sound. Naruto looked at the crater to see the man standing, his Akatsuki cloak destroyed as well as Samahata's wrapping. You really thought that would be enough for me, Kyuubi? The blonde man leapt back, then put his hand on his katana and drew it as he looked over at Kisame, who was out of the crater. Naruto put his blade in front of him, then dashed at Kisame. Kisame did the same, rushing towards Naruto, and the two's blades meet. Samahata going to work on trying to siphon off Naruto's chakra. Naruto smirked, though. He wanted to get Kisame closer. He closed his eyes, then reopened, then as a small circle surrounded them on the ground. Kisame noticed this. how do you keep doing things without hand signs? He didn't reply, then leapt back quickly as he threw his sword into the ground and slammed his hands together. At that moment a ball of wind surrounded Kisame and started to rotate. Kisame swung his sword at the ball, unknowingly playing into Naruto's hands. The rotation was sucking the air out of the ball, and Kisame increasing his air consumption would just further his cause. After about a minute Kisame froze and realized what was going on, grabbing at his throat. Naruto's smirk got larger. Figured it out, did you? It's too late for you, you will die now. He closed his hands and the ball constricted, crushing Kisame. Naruto looked over at the three standing Akatsuki members. Who was next? There was a groaning sound behind them as Zetsu was waking up until a kunai with a paper bomb on it flew past them, blowing him up. Naruto smirked, almost forgot about him. The next one that moved was Deidara, reaching back into his pouch to get some of his exploding clay. Naruto flashed at him, trying to delay his process of making explosives. He underestimated Deidara's speed with it though as he released clay spiders on the ground. Naruto groaned, then leapt into the air and floated there as he looked down at the Akatsuki members who were looking at him with wide eyes. Then Itachi pieced it all together. Impossible. He made a contract with the wind element. Naruto made the shadow clone sign and two other Narutos appeared as he looked at his three remaining opponents for the day. After this he would rest, then go home. 5 dead Akatsuki members, 4 of them being important than Deidara. The Narutos all flew down as the real Naruto grabbed onto Itachi's ponytail and drug him to the waterfall to fight him. Clone 1 vs. Deidara. The clone flew down as the spiders began to explode. Carefully avoiding the explosions, the clone tackled into Deidara. The two rolled away and the clone took off Deidara's clay pack and left it on the ground as they rolled away. When the two stopped rolling they both parted and got into fighting stances. Deidara went back for some clay but noticed that the pack was gone. He glanced up to see that the clone was holding it now with a smirk on his face. Lose something. Deidara growled, give that back. You're going to ruin my art. Naruto rose his eyebrow, you call what you do art? The blonde Akatsuki member looked shocked by the statement. Naruto just stared at him waiting for some kind of answer from the man, but it seemed that the clone had given him a heart attack. He let out an exaggerated sigh, then smacked the pack, unseen by Deidara, what the clone put on the pack. The clone tossed it over to him, then sighed, you're pathetic enough as it is, might as well make it so that you are a little more of a challenge. Deidara growled, then turned the pack to see the tag the clone put on it about to explode. His eyes widened, then the pack exploded. What neither Jiraiya or Naruto knew was that Deidara was a bomb himself. When the explosion went off and killed the clone, the real Naruto looked over at the sight of the mushroom cloud that had formed. The real Naruto let out a sigh, you people really let him make himself a bomb. Itachi rose his eyebrow, he was a bomb. Naruto nodded his head, then shrugged it off, getting back to the matter at hand. Clone 2 vs. Konan. The two stared at one another as Konan moved her hand and tried to send paper attacks at Naruto's clone. They would get close, then deflect from the wind that he had around his body. The clone just stared at Konan, your death will be painful, you were a disciple of his and you still let him die. She smirked, Jiraiya-sensei stood in the way of our goal, we are trying to achieve his dream. The clone growled, don't call him your sensei, bitch. Konan smirked, thinking she was going to GT to the blonde man. In a way she was right, but it wasn't the way she would want. All she was doing was fueling his desire to kill her. Within the blink of an eye he was standing next to her and delivered a devastating backhand to her, making her fly into a building. The rubble started to move as paper surged up from where she was and pushed the destroyed building out of her way. Konan slowly pushed herself out of the rubble. Even if she was protected by the paper, it still hurt to get hit into a building. She glared over at Naruto, who stared right back, then he flashed within the blink of an eye. He was standing above her and stepping down on her throat. She tried to get him off of her by using her paper to attack him, but he quickly countered with his wind, pushing the paper back down and cutting her with it. Naruto's clone had an evil smirk as he stood on top of her, stepping down hard on her neck, making her choke for air. The clone held out his hand and a Rasengan formed in his hand. Konan was looking up at him. She had been trained not to show emotion, but for a brief moment Naruto saw her eyes flash fear. The clone nodded his head, you should be afraid, you're going to die here so that I can keep my family safe. The next thing she knew, a Rasengan was slammed down into her skull, making it so that her head exploded. Naruto's clone looked around and used his wind to sense for anyone, but seeing that no one else was left besides Naruto and Itachi, it dispelled, making the memories return to Naruto. The memories returned to Naruto, who smirked as he looked over at Itachi. Looks like you are all out of friends, Itachi. All that is left is for me to kill you, and Akatsuki would have taken a good enough hit for now. Itachi stared at Naruto, then cracked his back as he moved his cloak off of him. I think that more than likely this will end with my capturing you, then the remaining Akatsuki extracting the Kyuubi from you. Naruto had a smirk and got ready for the upcoming battle with the man who slaughtered his entire clan other than his little brother. To be continued.